Welcome to the Ghost Tea Podcast. I'm your host, Ariel Willow, a clairvoyant since childhood, paranormal investigator, and occult practitioner. Today I want to talk about different ways that we may be holding ourselves back from utilizing our abilities and really stepping into our power. Before we jump in, I want to remind you that everyone has different views on things, and that's okay. I don't ask you to believe what I do, I just want to share what I've found in my personal path with others. Today I had someone comment on my TikTok about how when they were younger, they had abilities and were able to see things and interact with things, and their abilities were really strong. But then they grew really scared of their abilities and they feel that they have closed them off. So they're wondering if there's ways to open it up again and ways that they can really step back into their abilities. And this immediately came into my mind. I was like, need to do a podcast episode about this like ASAP, because I realized I don't know if I've ever really talked about this, and if I have, it's only been in other episodes and not its own exclusive episode. So I really want to do an episode about this. I do want to kind of go over my background just to let you guys know where I was at before being where I'm at with my abilities today. I have always had my abilities for as long as I can remember, and because of that, I've never really had to do a lot of work to reopen them again. They were just kind of waiting for me to accept them for what they were before they really started blossoming again. But that doesn't mean that my abilities became what they are today overnight. It's actually taken me 9 years of consistent work on allowing myself to step back into my abilities the same way that I was able to as a kid before they've gotten to the point that they have today. And I wouldn't say my abilities are even as strong as they were when I was a child, so there's still some improvement to be made. I tried so many techniques. I bought all of the crystals. I did all of the things to try to open my abilities back up because I thought that they were blocked. But I don't think they were blocked at all. I think that I was just afraid. I think there's a lot of power that you can have by realizing and being able to identify whether or not you're afraid or resisting. And I think that there was fear there that was keeping me back from really stepping into my abilities. So instead of seeing it as that you're blocked, which I think a lot of people see that as a visual thing, you're kind of creating this block for yourself when there isn't really one there. It's more of just stepping into the room and stepping into the spot where you hold your power. Instead of imagining a block around your abilities, I want you to imagine it like a throne. A throne holds a lot of power, and it is something for someone in a high position with lots of ability to make decisions and step into their power. But in order to sit there, you have to feel worthy of that power. And if you don't feel worthy of it, you're not going to be able to utilize that power to its full potential. I think a lot of people want to have these abilities to prove their worthiness or their power to other people. But what if you had those abilities to prove your power to yourself? How would that change how you view them? I do have to say that sometimes having abilities will have people see you differently. Sometimes they'll see you as different in a good way, and sometimes they'll see you as different in a bad way. I've gone through times in my life, as well as these times overlapping, where people have been very accepting and really cool with my gifts. And then I've had times where people really shunned me and rejected me for my gifts. Something that I would really like you to also ask yourself is whether or not you feel fear about stepping into your power because you don't know how to hone it, or because you just don't know what to expect. There can be a fear with not knowing if you have the ability to control what it is that you can do. And I think that taking away that fear is really going to help you open up to your abilities again. If you get a job somewhere and you get the proper training, you're not really afraid as much as you would be had you not gotten the training to do the job. If you're working with very heavy and scary machinery, but you've gotten trained how to do it, it's not as scary and as intimidating. So see your abilities in that way. If you view everything about quote unquote opening up your abilities again more like a classroom, it makes it a lot less intimidating because you're not in competition with anybody else. You're simply learning. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Spirituality is not a race, and it's not a marathon either. It is a walk on your own path by yourself. But here's the biggest thing that kept me from utilizing my abilities to their fullest potential: protection. And when I say that, I don't mean that I was unprotected. I mean that I didn't know how to protect or defend myself. And that caused me to really hold back on really opening my abilities because I didn't know that I could handle anything that came my way. This, again, I'm going to use the metaphor of a training ground for, because if you think of it in a way of being trained with big machinery, if you know that every 50 feet, the big machinery that you're working with, it shakes back and forth, then when it happens, you're not going to be as afraid of it. You know how to correct the machinery again and continue on. Same way as if you were to get in touch with mediumship abilities. If you know that you're going to be seeing spirits who may have missing limbs or missing eyes or things like that that may be very scary in the moment, if you expect that, then it's not as scary. In addition to that, if you know what beings to call on, and if you've taken the time to get to know those beings before even really utilizing your gifts to the full potential that you can, then you know that if you come across a spirit that you don't feel comfortable with, you can call on your guide, you can call on Archangel Azrael, you can call on these different beings that you have put in your toolbox to call on when you're uncomfortable, so that you don't have to handle a situation that you don't feel ready for. Being comfortable with your abilities in the sense of knowing that you can handle anything that you're faced with makes a huge difference in how much you open up to your abilities. Of course, my fridge turns on as I'm trying to wrap up the episode. But I know that this episode was short, but I hope that it brought a little bit more insight into why you may be having trouble connecting to your abilities and utilizing them. Because I think a lot of people look at this in maybe a way that isn't benefiting them and isn't helping them to move forward. If you feel like there's a block, you're always going to try to look for ways to blow through it rather than seeing it as something that is already available to you. You just have to trust yourself enough to step into it. I hope this helped you to feel a little bit more confident in stepping into your abilities, and I hope that this mindset will be a breakthrough moment for you in opening them back up again. I know that it was for me, and it made a huge difference for me a couple years ago when it happened, and it took my abilities through leaps and bounds forward after I did that. As always, if you want to book a private session with me, I have some available this week. You can go to www.arielwillow.com. From there, you can learn more about me, see what sessions I have available that week, which are restocked every Saturday, and join my newsletter. As always, stay safe, stay curious, and keep learning. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.